Okay, well, I'm going to call the meeting to order. So it's Wednesday, January 15th. This is the Assembly Committee on Homelessness. We'll start with introductions. Exalta.
Nancy Burke.
Okay, so as you can see from the agenda, we're going to do 10 minutes of audience participation, and then we'll go into 2 items on our agenda, committee discussion, and then any remaining audience participation if we have time. So anyone like to speak before us? It'll be 3 minutes, and you just step up to the table and please use the microphone. And please state your name when you start your testimony. Anyone? Anyone at all? No? Okay, then we will move right along. Look at that. All right, Nancy, you are on with the Mobile Intervention Team overview.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Jasmine to come sit up with me. So today we're talking about some work that's been done across different municipal and external structures. We're talking about the Mobile Intervention Team, and I hope to provide some background on how that project began and why we began that project. And then give you information about how we anticipate that project melding with the community work that the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness is doing. And so Jasmine is here with me. I would also like to say that the Mobile Intervention Team has just completed its migration. It began as an experiment with the fire department and was incubated there, although it was always tagged to the police department, and now it is fully in the police department. And Lieutenant Gina Burrington will be the lead for that, will be the person who will respond to inquiries about the Mobile Intervention Team. I've been supporting this program and this in my role from the mayor's office, but I will be taking a step back, and it will be proceeding now entirely with the police department. Captain Mike Curl is here today to answer any questions we might have for APD around that or any other topics. But I offered to do the presentation, and he's not looking like he wants to do it. So the Mobile Intervention Team really began in 2015 to help the municipality, which was struggling very much with the outcomes of what is a fairly disjointed and some might suggest broken behavioral health system in the community. Looking at the way that those breakdown in services and the need for additional services in our homeless system created really some challenges for emergency responders in the community. And so just looking at the things that were happening, homeless persons were encountered by the CAP team in camps, and we didn't have a coordinated system for following up. The police and the fire department were frequently responding to locations where people were being served and into the community. There were people in psychiatric crisis. If a community member called in 2015 and had someone who was in acute crisis in their building or facility, many churches will tell you stories about this, that we really couldn't get a response to them for a matter of days. And so that is problematic when you have someone who's in crisis in your building. So there was no coordination across the system. There was no way to determine what kinds of resources were needed to bring in and what would happen. In addition, something that's not on here is something happened in the service system in 2015 and 16 that happens frequently. Is there was some grant funding that provided outreach in the community that was lost. And so changes happened within a matter of months where the only mental health outreach that we had in the community was basically shut down and gone. And so to help respond to and to create some stability and consistency for the municipality, the police and fire departments agreed to look at strategies that could be managed from the municipality with an effort and an eye towards saving resources and saving the community services that we need to respond for all citizens broadly. And so in the police department, the mobile intervention team has been the focus. It has a number of different priority areas that we'll go into in some remaining slides. The fire department developed the core team with a similar idea of identifying people who were escalating toward crisis and diverting them to lower level resources and services so that you could prevent that crisis escalation. The camp abatement process was connected to community outreach providers in a much more robust way. The team of CORE and the mobile intervention team are providing training and on-site support to many locations across the community. And then the last project that came through with the recognition that if we don't actually find a way to make our permanent supported housing programs much more robust, we're going to just be managing people in this crisis system. And so Home for Good is the name of the project that is the using a pay for success financing mechanism. So the current mobile intervention team has 3 positions that are in place right now. Melina Breland, who also wanted to be with us today, but she's out. Wasn't able to make it. Tanya Vandenbos is a social service referral specialist, and Josh Pepper has joined the team in that capacity as well. There was new resources that were targeted for the mobile intervention team. One thing that the team really needs is an administrative kind of case manager. And similarly, as we see when we add people who are out in the community doing things, we have to fund their ability to have organization and administrative support. And so that's what this case management support is designed, or at least envisioned to be, for 2020. And then there was $45,000 that was added to support the data tracking pilot that we'll talk about as we go further. There are a few other pieces that are related, and the first one is there is administrative support that goes along with the Home for Good program. That program has some requirements that will take attention and will take administrative time. And then the health department has previously had a contract with Rural Cap to do outreach services that was tagged to this team in the summer of 2019.
Before we move on, can you talk a little bit more about what the municipal role is with regard to additional administrative or coordination work under Home for Good, and how that relates to what the United Way is doing?
Yes. If we go here, these bubbles represent all of the focus that the mobile intervention team has. It's a number of places in the community where there was needs that were, when we're not addressing, they negatively impact the municipality's ability to do its job. And so the Home for Good program is on the upper left here. The eligibility list management, this is a data sharing project that's been going forward. The police department, the fire department, and the health department have been pooling data. And we have an external manager at the university who is taking that data and then cross-referencing it with homelessness data through the housing, the homeless management information system. And so that data is the municipality's data, and we manage that data carefully. There's a lot of sharing requirements that are on that data. So the list, after it's coordinated with the homeless data, it brings a prioritization of people who have circled through our emergency systems at a very high level. And so it becomes a prioritized list that goes back to the originator, to the municipality. Currently, we have that list management function happening in the mobile intervention team. So the MIT receives the list back and then works with the nonprofits on referrals for housing for those persons. Is that clear? So the other areas you can see here are the ones that are working with the police department to address persons who are in psychiatric crisis in the community. So co-responding with a police officer is the top bubble, the intervention co-response model. There's coordination of the homeless camp outreach with the coalition and service providers. There's general outreach. If a business calls, frequently a business will call and say someone's at our location and having a crisis. This mobile intervention team can now get there within that day, which is a tremendous improvement and has been a real benefit to a number of businesses across the community. The 880 ordinance is an area where when we see businesses or locations that have high call volume, if you look into the nature of those calls, you frequently will learn that it's a person who has a behavioral health issue who is behind those calls. And so bringing in a person with clinical experience and expertise to help that business think about how they might manage that, or if it's a landlord, how they might work with their tenant in a different way so that we're not driving people toward evictions, or we're dislodging people from community settings where an intervention may help them remain stabilized. So those are the general buckets. This next slide gives you some additional detail about those general buckets, but those are the areas where if you talk with one of the mobile intervention team members, they're going to be working on one of those areas in the moment. Slide number 7 gives you an idea of the kinds of things that they're doing throughout the community, and this first bullet is a little plug for the mobile intervention team. Really supports the point-in-time count, and in fact has used the GIS mapping tool and has created some protocols that we think really increases the data reliability for the point-in-time count and the summer community count. They've been working behind that system for a number of years, and so the next one is January 28th, and we are accepting volunteers if anybody is interested in going out. I know assembly members will be busy at the assembly meeting on that evening, but it's that same evening. And so the MIT is actually exercising its role as facilitating entities, facilitating partners who can serve persons who are in mental health crisis or who are needing a service connection. They do that with hospitals, they do that with groups like the Downtown Partnership. Sometimes they're talking to community councils, so they're out in the community making sure that we can make the connections that will help people get from a crisis to a service referral and stability. So slide 7 gives you some ideas of how that looks. So the question is, how does this coordinate with the MIT, or how does the MIT coordinate with community social service agencies? And one way of thinking about it is this diagram where we have the mobile intervention team, and our first order of business is the referral, making sure that we can get the right service provider out to the person in the least amount of time. And so this summer and part of 2018 and all of 2019, we were working on these systems and creating ways of tracking the MIT contacts to referral. And if you think about this slide number 9, the red line is sort of where we are as a community. We now know that the MIT can go out, they can respond, they are able to track who they're responding to and the kinds of referrals they're making. But we have not yet been able to get the data sharing agreements in place or the protocols in place that will help them understand what happens after we get them to that referral. And so, if you had we are here, it's that red line. And so the work that the coalition, and one of the reasons why this is an important partnership, is the coalition is building out that robust community response network. So Built for Zero is an initiative that's working on organizing the work of a by name list, a method for selecting people off of that list, and the service connections that are needed to make sure that people sustain their housing referral once it happens. And so that involves adult outreach and navigation services, tighter connections with behavioral health systems, connections with other things that aren't on here, treatment services, vocational services, all those things that happen once a person is out in the community. So in our hope to, I'm going to skip one slide and go here. In our hope to, in our work of 2020, the partnership between the coalition and the MIT should look like this. The MIT should pick people up in crisis. They should be moving them out of community emergency response systems into a referral and then into this organized system that's being developed with the coalition. This looks simple, this looks more straightforward, but the work behind it is very complex and will take us some time. And so what we're proposing is that we think about these as controlled pilots or defined pilots that we might work on this summer. And so I'll go back to this slide. I think about it as what each of these areas needs is an air traffic control in the middle. And that's kind of the role that the mobile intervention team played last summer. They helped organize the outreach person who basically paired with community partners and did a canvass of the community every 2 weeks. There was a member that was a really wonderful rural CAP employee, and he partnered with organizations like Covenant House, Choices, who you're going to hear from later today, the Veterans Administration. He was sort of the hub, and they all connected to him for research. He had a regular routine thing that he did every 2 weeks around the Anchorage goal. And then when outreach was needed for things that were coming up in the community, so if there was a camp abatement process going through, we would schedule that into the regular rotation, and we would have outreach connect with those areas. Without someone sitting in the middle of all of that and organizing it and being that, what I call air traffic control, we are not able to connect all the dots that are going to get us to this diagram where we can track where people went.
Thank you. I think this kind of gets to the heart of some of the questions that the members have had, and I know that the public has had. That air traffic control position, the question is where or how are we figuring out what's happening when we abate a camp and where people are going? I understand there's a data link, but this person, this rural CAP employee or the air traffic controller, they are the responsible person for the warm handoff, the handoff to other agencies?
They have been, and they've been what we developed last summer. Well, let me say, in part, they have. There is a distinction that I think we learned very well last summer, that the person doing the work actually can't be the person who's overseeing the whole, like where do people go, because he would get pulled into something's needed over here, something's needed over here. So he would be doing things on the ground and then not be able to say, okay, last week I saw 5 people, who's got them, where is that? We began a convention with the help of the coalition, or coordination with the coalition, of having a weekly meeting to talk about people. And there's some debate happening with the people who are doing the work about whether a weekly meeting's too long, because by then the person's gone and you aren't catching it. So what we want to do this summer with more of a real-time configuration is figure that out, like how in the moment can we say we have these 10 people, and here's where they're going and here's what they're doing. We haven't actually figured out how to configure those positions, is the short answer.
I'm more confused than I was when I asked the question. I apologize. But what I'm trying to figure out is, and maybe the answer you don't know yet, when we abate a camp or we're doing these community canvases, like, what is the workflow? Because what I'm hearing is one of the jobs of MIT is to coordinate the coordination of homelessness camp outreach. So, but that's not the air traffic controller. So I'm trying to figure out where the intersection of the air traffic controller and the people actually doing the handoffs and all of them intersect, and maybe that's what you're working on.
It's a position right in the middle of it. So we think that MIT continuing to help organize the schedule and all the members and making sure that the emergency response is available with air traffic control. So someone who's monitoring referrals that were made last week, referrals that are made today, and maintaining a comprehensive list of who's in the system.
So practically speaking, who's going to the camps to talk with people about and making the referrals?
I'm going to use the term, the new FIA. His name was FIA, and he was an amazing outreach worker. So the new FIA, or whatever configuration we decide of that lead outreach person, will be connecting with people from Covenant House, from VA, from all of those. So those pairings will be happening.
And is that in the MIT team, or is that somebody we contract with, or just a partner?
That is external from the MIT team out here in this community piece. It was connected to the MIT team this summer, and we learned there are some edges around that it's better to have, I think it's better to have that person in the community so that they can be in HMIS consistently, they can be connected to other service providers and not necessarily that connected to the police processes that happen.
Who's funding that?
Well, the previous position was funded under the Anchorage Health Department has a contract that is community services dollars. And it's vacant at the moment. And one of the reasons why this is a bit vague is that what needs to happen next, in my slide that says next steps, is we need those service providers, we need everyone involved to get together and say, okay, how are we going to organize air traffic control? Who's air traffic control? How's it going to be placed in the community, and what do we need to do about it?
Okay.
Now, here's something that I will hopefully not further complicate it, but the fact is that people who we find in the camps who are camping, when we've looked at data taken on those point-in-time count days or across the week that we do in the summer, we see a tremendous amount of people touching the system in different places. And so this is a piece that I approached Jasmine with and said, Jasmine, what we really need to do is present these two bodies of work together, because there's a parallel system in the existing day shelter location at Beans Cafe, in the existing service system where the soup kitchens are, for navigation resources to help people who are touching that part of the homeless service system get the same resources, referrals to services, referrals for housing. So as we build up one part of our service system, we really need to think about building up both parts of it. And so my suggestion is that we think about 2 air traffic controllers. I think it's too much work for one person to do both of these settings. There's too many people, it's too much coordination that needs to happen, but that we have a air traffic control for navigation at, this is called in-reach, when somebody's at an existing facility or in a service, and then one for outreach, so that you're not putting pressure. You know, if you squeeze a balloon and you put pressure on one part of the system, it'll go to the other. So as we build out the new components of our system, that we think about this as the way to help people get out to housing referrals. Does that make sense?
To add on to what Nancy's describing, I think there's the long-term work to build a better system, and then there's what needs to happen immediately. And if I'm hearing from the Assembly and also from some of our partners in Juneau, there is a desire in the moment to better understand the efficacy of camp abatement. So to better understand, once we abated a camp with some duration of time afterwards, where were those people? Were they in another camp? Were they in a shelter? Were they receiving different or more adequate services? So is this process working? And I think what Nancy is talking about with the vacant position that was previously housed at AHD or through AHD funds at Rural Cap is, can we take advantage of that resource to deploy resources around camp abatement and do some better data collection so that we can understand what's happening after camp abatement. I think that's one unique body of work to respond to the immediate request, if I'm understanding correctly. There is a parallel effort that the coalition is engaging with our shelter providers, our outreach providers, to say long term, it really isn't about abatement. Long term, throughout the year, we should be coordinating outreach to make sure that we are canvassing Eagle River, Girdwood, Anchorage, and use the GIS system that the Muni has stood up to say, here's where the community is reporting camps. Let's have a 365 days a year responsive system that when a camp is reported, outreach is going there. That to me is a systemic build, and that is something that requires outreach workers have resources to do data entry, that we have enough outreach workers, that we are mapping that geography. And as Nancy points out, if outreach is successful at moving people to shelters, we don't want shelters to become the next bottleneck, because there aren't navigators in our shelters to help those people get out of shelters into a sustainable long-term home. So I think that's the work that the coalition is engaging our partners in the community around, but that doesn't meet the needs for this summer and the camp abatement process. The other thing that Nancy and I have been hypothesizing is we're about to engage in the point-in-time count. And for the last 5 or 6 years, we have found somewhere between 95 and 100 individuals who are unsheltered in the winter during the point-in-time count. Knowing that there's some data capacity issues that we're living with, can we take those approximately 100 individuals and use them as a pilot group? And while it's a bit more manual, can we follow those 100 people who we know are electing or by necessity sleeping outside in the winter and figure out where are they in the summer? And where are they in the camp abatement processes in the summer? I think on one hand, it is positive because it takes our most vulnerable and most underserved and really forces us to ask, are we being effective with moving them into appropriate shelter? It's also the toughest group. So I think that the outcomes are going to be worse with this particular group because they are the folks that sleep outside. But that was the other item that Nancy didn't mention that we're hoping to engage in the next couple months. Again, a bit manual, more manual than I would like, but a possible way that we can begin to have a more educated answer to some of the questions about efficacy.
And for the record, Mr. Weddleton's on the phone.
So we think that the way to begin the engagement around this and to test the data processes or the collection that we need to partner with the community providers to figure out where people end is to begin with this winter group, with the pit count persons. We also can compare, some of their information to summer and last winter. So we could begin getting some information from a defined group of people and learn what we need to learn as we move forward and look to branch it out.
So I'd be really curious if this around 100 individuals are identified during the point in time count this winter, to know what barriers they're seeing to not take advantage of emergency shelter during the winter. Is it that location? Is it, what is it? Because I thought we're funding emergency shelter to encompass pretty much most of our unsheltered individuals, or are we 100 beds short? I guess that's the first question. And the second is, if we're not 100 beds short, then what are those barriers so we can start to have that conversation, particularly around emergency shelter in the winter, or if we're looking at year-round shelter, where are we running into roadblocks?
That's an excellent point. The way that my fault, sorry, it's okay. The way that we have taken the next step in the process of determining shelter was to use our numbers based on who showed up. And so the 2019 number of adding 150 beds, which we bumped up to 166, that 150 number came from the review of the data that the health department kept around who presented for the warming station last year when it was very cold. And so that number, the high mark of that number was around 150 people. And so, but however, in January, we still counted 97 people out in the community. And so there probably is some more people that are going to come in if we can engage them and bring them in. But at the moment, we're just using data that we know is solid. And so the 150 was added. It appears to be adequate for this year. We've been close to being full for these cold days, but we have not hit that point where we just don't have any additional space. So we're doing okay this winter, and this is the the researchers use the term best available data. It's what we can get our hands on, it's what we can use to plan with, and then we revise it and improve it as we go forward. So what's next is we need to get all our teams together. We need to plan. We need to figure out what we all think about these two air traffic control ideas. It could be that some other partner has something that we could just tag onto and use, and so we'll be convening those meetings in conjunction with the conversations that are happening around increasing the day shelter resources. We'll be following through with our PIT team that goes out and does the count. And so what ideally will work is that we have a working group of about 100 people that we're actually doing this tracking as we build the next steps of the system, so that we can inform the work directly from the data that we're collecting from the community.
So another question for me, and if anyone else has questions, please chime in. Since we funded shelter for May through December, how does that play into any changes in strategy for this coming summer? Or is that still part of something to be worked out? Because in theory, I think we funded what we saw as potentially the low barrier shelter gap, so that there, in theory, should be no camps, or could be less camps with quicker turnaround, that shelter capacity wouldn't become the issue.
Yes. The camp abatement group began meeting in November, took a little bit of a break for December, but is gearing back up to talk about how can we basically turn that system up. If we have shelter, that system can be faster, with the limitation being the resource that we have. We know that we can't do everything as quickly as everybody would like, but it could be faster this summer.
But what about MIT's role in that?
So the air traffic control position would allow the MIT to do the coordination around people who are found in those camps that have urgent mental health needs, to do the high priority coordination, and then pairing with the community providers to get contacts out to the people who don't have really acute situations. So we'll see some sort of a leveling. The MIT will deal with the crisis, and then the air traffic control and the community outreach process will come in and work with everybody else.
Any other questions for Nancy or Jasmine about the mobile intervention team? Great, thank you.
We appreciate the time to talk with you about it. And one thing that I wanted to just say on your slides, it was a suggestion that I think is a really great one, to add an acronym and definitions page. And so this one has some more acronyms and definitions than we used in this presentation, but it's not a bad tool for everybody.
Mr. Dyson would thank you. All right, great. Next on our agenda, we have the Choices Program overview. You can come on up to the table and grab the mic. When you get settled in, you can introduce yourselves, and we look forward to learning about Choices.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Noland. I'm the CEO for Choices, and this is Chalon Lubin, and he is the Program Director for PATH. Choices is consumers having options in creating effective services, and it was founded in 2003. We are a peer-led organization, and we approach all of our services in a holistic way. We have 4 programs through which we offer services to people who experience persistent mental illness and substance use disorders, starting with the PATH program, which Jalen will explain more to you about.
Okay, so PATH program stands for Projects for Assistance in Transitions from Homelessness. We partner with Mobile Intervention Team, the Fire Department, APD, Rural CAP, doing outreach to the camps we were kind of talking about before, after abatement and things like that as well. We also go into the shelters, talk to people to see what their needs are, and our goal is to connect them to resources, whether it be housing or mental health resources, either in our organization or outside, or just food stamps and Medicaid connection. And yeah, from there, that's pretty much the quick version of what PATH does. We provide acute case management to get them into those services, which the goal is once they're in housing, we move on after about a month of them being in housing and having the supportive housing services they need from there. That's pretty much the quick version of PATH. If you guys have any questions, go ahead.
I have one. What's the funding mechanism for PATH?
So it's a federal grant through SAMHSA, and that's it.
Can you tell us about how many clients you assist on an annual basis, or however you track that?
So we use HMIS. We, so far last year for our report, I think we saw around 250 different people as far as enrolling them. That's so sometimes we just have a contact, and if we can get the data, we put that into HMIS. From there, if we can work with the client, we enroll them. So as far as enrollments, off the top of my head, I don't have the data in front of me, but I think we had about 60 clients we worked with. For a while there, it was just me. We added on another outreach specialist. So there's 2 of us now as of about 3 months ago.
Okay, go ahead.
So that's about it. We worked with about 60 people. We connected around 50 to housing over the last year, and on top of that, even more to various services that would benefit them to leave homelessness.
I don't want to sound rude and stuff, but
Actually, we're going to have another opportunity for audience participation after the choices presentation. Is okay? You can be first in line. Thanks.
All right, our next program is the Housing First Assertive Community Treatment Program, and it provides wraparound services for Alaskans where they're at. Each Alaskan has 4 professionals that surrounds them. There's a case manager, nurse, and then depending on what the particular needs are, there may be a vocational case manager, maybe a housing case manager. We do have a psychiatric prescriber on the ACT team, and the whole intention of the ACT program is to meet Alaskans who are in acute psychiatric crisis and provide the appropriate supports for them that help them move towards increased stability. And that includes helping them with housing. And it's low barrier model. Next, we have intensive case management, and with our intensive case management program, that is a more traditional clinic style of service where we do provide case management as well as talk therapy and a variety of groups that people can participate in. Our final program is called PEER, and within the PEER program, a lot of our staff actually are people that experience disability themselves and so have lived experience. And the staff of PEER do case management to do a variety of things to help that Alaskan to be successful. People that participate in PEER are folks that have achieved stable housing. And within Peer, we have the Peer Bridger program, which is a reach-in program where we actually go into API and Providence and work with people who are in the process of transitioning from the acute setting back out into the community. And those are the services that Choices provides. Other questions?
Mr. Weddleton, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, where are your offices located? Where is Choices?
It's right across from the Cars Safeway on 13th and Gamble.
Okay. And which you do these 4 programs? Which of them, if any, do you have clients you actually service at that office?
We have people that stop in pretty regularly. Shaylin and Anna will have people that come in for different reasons that they've made contact with, and so they'll come in to meet with them just depending on what their needs are. And then for the ICM program, people are coming for regular talk therapy appointments and for groups. The ACT team participants are folks that have a bit more of a challenging time actually coming to the office. And so the staff for ACT, which I believe we have 14 staff for ACT, they actually go out into the community 75% of the time to meet with the participants.
Thank you. Can I ask you, Madam Chair, it's a great organization, but why this organization in particular? How did this come about, and what's our sort of connection here?
Mr. Weddleton asked.
Oh.
That's why I asked if you had questions. And actually, they do work closely with the MIT team. So they do have a connection there. They're one of the outreach providers that I assume, or if I understand this right, Nancy, that the MIT team puts folks in contact with through Choices. Right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Those are the 2 reasons.
I worked pretty closely with Ian, so if he would contact me, we'd go to the camp abatements together, and then I can either refer them into our programs or be that warm handoff sometimes. So I was on the receiving end of the warm handoffs, and also work with those people closely that are being abated in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you so much for coming and telling us about your program. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I didn't touch anything, I promise. So committee discussion, anyone have anything they'd like to share? Okay. Audience participation. Sir, if you'd like to participate first, you're welcome to 3 minutes to testify here up at the table with the microphone, and then anyone else who'd like to provide any comments to us. Just be sure to state your name for the record, please.
You'll have to excuse me. I've been up and it's been a rough life. My name is David, and I've been in Alaska for 25 years now. I've been other places, and to kind of complain and to not be appreciative of Alaska or to treat it bad, I kind of disagree with. But what I'm standing up here today is I'm very, very disappointed that after being here for so long, and I'm actually older now. You know, I'm old enough to go out to drink. I'm old enough to go out to smoke. And I didn't know that a lot of the older people in Alaska were going through some of these problems and these issues. And I was pretty embarrassed, and I was pretty upset, and that if there is the meetings on homelessness, right? I don't know if there is a place to refer a person, or the main place that, you know, a lot of our I'm just very upset that we refer majority of anyone that comes here to what we know is BFS, and they can only do so much, you know. I think we're kind of now beating at a dead horse. I never thought in a million years I would be the one sitting outside with hypothermia or carrying around socks and gloves and scarves for everyone. I lost my house, and I'm very appreciative that I lost my house because I've been able to help other people that are less fortunate. And I don't have anything to help with. I don't know. I just think that we know that Brother Francis is there, and we all know that Brother Francis is there, and that now we need to kind of move on from Brother Francis. And is there anything else going on? Because I don't think that right now that if there was room during emergency shelter, that we should be referring anyone there anyway. I don't know. I was homeless, and now it's even worse, you know. Like, I went from being homeless to being like absolutely nobody, to becoming a loiterer, to becoming a vagrant, to being told to get out in 0 below weather. So we can all demonstrate, and it's easy to pick on the smaller person, or I apologize if we're running out of time, but we're actually dealing with people's lives, and I've witnessed a lot of people demonstrating other people's lives, and I'm happy that I'm actually here. This was in my little diary or journal, that one day I would get to come and sit at a town hall meeting and give my opinion, or or make it to the state capitol and have my opinion. I mean, say so at this point. I mean, it's kind of out the window.
We have actually a question for you, I think, Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. David, so you said we shouldn't be referring people to the BFS anymore. Why did you say that?
I mean, I believe that it can be ran better. I believe that there can be more one-on-one activities, more things going on. Like for instance, they put in bingo and they put in karaoke. Those are nice things that we know that that they need things to occupy their time. But there's no teamwork. What I witnessed is kind of selfishness. They have a zero tolerance policy, and I think right now at this time, if we are here, it's probably because we've come from worse, because we've had less is the reason why we're here. We didn't just come here because we had such a beautiful life, or our family had such a beautiful life anywhere else. But I wouldn't refer anyone there, or I wouldn't even refer anyone to kind of leave their house. Sometimes it's becoming very immature, because I don't know how to explain it. It's just become very immature as far as I don't know. Like, I think that more things can be done. That more one-on-one time can be spent on how to better the shelter. Like they were talking about going off and building another shelter, or they started on the homeless youth, the new homeless youth shelter. Well, if that was already a shelter, and we build a new shelter, pardon my language, but what the fuck do we need with another bar? Or we can go sit on the roof and drink more alcohol and cause more problems.
Thank you.
So I apologize, but
Okay.
people's
I appreciate the
priorities
testimony.
kind of screwed up. If it was a shelter, I think it should have stayed a shelter. It was
All right.
my shelter.
Thank you. Yeah, please come on up.
Thank you, Roger Branson. I'm a longtime advocate for mental health consumers. And my question for David would be: are you able to go into the web?
No.
you're not, okay, that's something we could probably work on. We'll talk afterwards. And they are a good alternate resource for choices to pick up people whose offices happen to be right across the street. As an advocate for mental health consumers, I just want to thank the work that you guys are doing right here and right now. It's huge. And the community's this has been trending this direction for some really positive stuff to happen, and I appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to testify?
Hello, my name is Linda Chase, and today I listened to, I'm not sure what. I mean, I'm not sure where is the temporary housing after we touch all these people in the neighborhood. I don't understand. When we abate encampments, you know, are we looking for a place for them to live as a municipality? Who's looking for places for these people to live? And who's paying? And the other element that is missing in this entire scenario is a word. It's called responsibility. And I realize that people with, you know, that are in crisis mentally or whatever, they might be the exception. But we all have the responsibility to take care of ourselves and not just to look to government or our neighbor or our parent to take care of us. And I see that not mentioned here. Not even thinking that anybody has responsibility for themselves. I find that pathetic. I think that is an enabling attitude. An enabling attitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just come on up.
Hi, my name is Tom McGrath. I've been asking Jasmine for like a flow chart of all of the different agencies and nonprofits and everybody that's involved in this for a long time now. And I think she's promised March. But that's the goal. Okay. It's good to hear about choices. First, I met Lisa before at a couple of different places. Now I know where she's at. But it's just really difficult to figure out who all the players are. And I come to a lot of meetings, and I should know better than I do. But I don't know a lot of things because it's kind of a moving target. Somebody asked me last night, after I gave testimony at the assembly, why don't we have a detox center in Anchorage? And we have nonprofits that do all kinds of different things. Why have we missed the detox? Why isn't there a nonprofit that's doing that? And unfortunately, I've asked the question in the past, and nobody's ever been able to give me an answer. So why don't we have that part? Why won't a nonprofit step forward and do that part? So I think a flow chart, when I was with the Army, we had flow charts years ago. When I was with General Electric, we had flow charts. No, there wasn't PowerPoints because that was before computers. When I was with GE, at that time, that was back in the Jack Welch days when there was 600,000 employees, I think, when I started. But everybody knew exactly where they fit. And that was kind of before computers. But we had a chart. We knew where we fit. And I think that's, to me, a big missing part here is not everybody knows where they fit. So that this gentleman back here could say, there's the flow chart, and here's where I might be able to get assistance. So I would really encourage you to work on that part so that everybody could know. And I know that the funding sources change from time to time, and all of a sudden choices might disappear because all your funding goes away. But that's my thing today is we just need information. And I think there's a lot of people out in the Anchorage that would love to give more help but we don't know where to give that help to.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar.
Tom, if the alcohol tax, a portion of it was dedicated to detox, would you support it?
I think that we really need a detox facility, but I don't want Anchorage to build it or operate it. And the reason is the same way as with API. You know, back in the 80s, API had up to 250 patients at one time. Because the state runs it and because of the bureaucracy, recently I think they were down to 11 patients because of government. And government gets in its own way so often that if there was a way to fund a nonprofit that would do a detox, and the municipality did not build the building, nor did they operate it, I would be in favor of it. But not if the municipality is going to build the building or operate it, I would not be in favor of it.
Thank you. Ms. Burke?
I would just like to correct the record that Anchorage has a detox center. It's the Ernie Turner Center. It's been in this community for many, many, many years. I was trying to look quickly and see if I could state how many beds are at Ernie Turner. They've reconfigured it recently. Maybe my colleague Susan might know off the top of her head. Anyway, we can provide that information to the committee. We definitely have detox. That's a needed resource. And in fact, South Central Foundation has recently gone through some changes to ensure that they're able to staff it properly with the medical focused personnel, and that it's functioning at its highest capacity. So I just wanted to correct that record that there is absolutely detox.
So why is the big talk that we're going to rebuild the Clitheroe Center and spend, I don't know, up to $50 million and $15 million of the MLMP settlement on a detox facility?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is something that is an important point that I've spoken with some of the advocates in the community, that there is a very large distinction between detox, which is the original process that assists a person in coming off of high levels of a substance. It doesn't have to be alcohol, it can be others. That is the first step of what are called treatment services. And then from detox, from day one, if you will, a person needs to go somewhere where they can receive medical monitoring, support, therapy, clinical support, education, vocational resources. They have to rework their life, and that's a continuum of treatment services that is what is being discussed for the site out at Point Mornsoff.
Okay. Anyone else? Just come on up. All right, go ahead. Thanks.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you all for your service. It's a really hard job to come in here and represent so many people and try and listen to your consistencies and try and problem solve at once. I think houselessness is one of the most upsetting issues that people run into. And I think the first thing that happens when people are seeing a problem for homeless for the first time is that it resonates with some deep part of ourselves. And it's very upsetting. And we don't know how to deal with that within ourselves, that feeling of resolve. And I think the tendency in our culture is to find the perpetrator, find the person who's responsible. And it's coming very, very clear to me that right now we're dealing with structures that are responsible. And everybody's following the law inside of these structures. And these laws and these structures are a big part of the responsibility for why we have houselessness. I want to acknowledge that we're standing on unceded Dana in the land. The Dana Island people did not have homelessness. No First Nations people in America did not have homelessness. They had a different structure. And Europeans, before Roman invasion, had some different structures. So I have a big question about our structures, for one. Then I have perspectives of being here for a year and a half after good 6 years of organizing in Portland, Oregon, homeless at Dignity Village, at Right to Dream 2, at Hazelnut Grove, working with Right to Survive. The things that moved the city was seeing homelessness and homeless people not being able, the homeless people standing their ground. Because then you start to have a conversation. So one of the things I really recommend that you have peer people and lived experience walking alongside with you on these decision-making processes. Because if you don't have those conversations, you will not be informed about the conditions of people on the streets. And I also want to consider the idea of responsibility. And you have to think about what is a person's ability to respond. If you're sleeping outside now, you're probably very cold, and you're experiencing urban hypothermia. That means your brain is slowed down. It's not gone down, it's not dead or anything like that, but it's slowed down. You're having to walk a lot to go get food, and the conditions, the priorities in your life have become very small and poor about getting enough sleep, staying warm, getting food, and if possible, having a conversation with someone.
Thank you.
So this is here about my feedback for what today is here, and I'm glad you guys are all working hard on this. So thank you.
Can you please put your name into the record?
Terry Light.
Thank you. Okay. Next.
I'm Ruth Layman. I'm from 9 Star Education Employment Services. And first, I just have a quick question that you can answer later. But we do have Community Service Patrol. Do they do detox anymore or not? That was just a question. And then in response to responsibility and nonprofits, a lot of the issues with nonprofits are that we have a hard time raising money. And 9 Star is a very stable organization, but when we started our homeless prevention program, we had a small chunk of money and we served a lot of people and a lot of people got jobs. We had no follow-up money, so we don't know where they are now. But that money ran out and we've been working on it. We just got a chunk of money, a small chunk of money in the relative sense, to work on prevention again, to keep those doors open so we can do that. Our population that we've been serving is not really the people who have mental illness or whatever. It's those people who are on the absolute brink of falling into homelessness or needing public assistance or, some kind of extra support. And we've been trying to catch them. We don't, like I said, it's called net to ladder. We catch them and then we try to elevate them. So, the big thing with services is finding funding. I know all of my colleagues here who run nonprofits, that's a huge issue. And I'm with you, no offense to the government, but usually the government can't do it as effectively as other people. I don't know why that is. But, we have big contracts with the government to put people to work that are on public assistance and so on, and we're very efficient at it. So I just think that trying to figure out how to get money to where those pockets of services need to be is a challenge. And we're kind of all out there looking for the same pots of money, especially in this particular topic. But I just want to keep saying, keep supporting the nonprofits and keep helping us do the work, because usually we're a pretty good machine. So thanks.
Thank you. And just on the Anchorage Safety Patrol, that's a sleep-off center, not a detox center. So folks,
It used to have both, I think.
it is simply sleep-off right now.
Okay, thank you for clarity.
Anyone else? Anyone at all? Oh, one from the back, just a second.
I'm Dave Kuiper. I have a question regarding the ASP. Is someone here that could just kind of talk us through their role and responsibility, their practice during these winter months? Anchorage Safety Patrol, it's primarily the safety of the individuals that they're concerned about. So is someone able to tell us how ASP serves in this environment in the winter? Maybe not?
Did you want to add any more testimony
No.
during? Okay.
No, that's
Okay.
it.
Great, thank you. So we could have them come in and present to the committee. I know how they operate in a general manner. They work through fire dispatch. So you call 311 or their direct number, and they're dispatched out to people who are called in, and they do a field. Not sobriety quite in the same way we think of with APD, but they check for the person's sobriety, try to get them on a breathalyzer, and make a determination if they meet the criteria to take them into civil custody to the sleep-off center. They sleep off, and then when they no longer meet that criteria, or if they come in after a certain time at night, then they are released in the morning.
Thank you. So does if they're out on, do they go out on patrol? And are they kind of observing situations and responding to situations as they see them?
They are on patrol, but like APD, their call volume is high enough that they can't just diverge.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They run, I've done a ride along with them. They are pretty much call after call after call. If they see someone and they don't have another call stack, or it's something that they've got some flexibility for, and I believe there's only one van on during the winter right now. Is Nicole here? Yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks very much. Someone asked me this, if you're connected with anything related to homelessness, then they ask you these questions and they don't have an answer.
Hi. My name is Nicole Lebo. I'm the Human Services Division Manager of the Health Department. And so I would say we have 3 vans on right now, and I think it's a really good idea to get those guys here to maybe present on what they do. The community reaches out very often because they see someone, for whatever reason, who is out in the cold and they want to have them pick them up, but there's certain criteria and not all. So if you're on maybe some other sort of drug that's not meeting that criteria, and then that feels very alarming to the public. Why can't we have these people who are helping individuals who are out in the cold? So they're not necessarily picking people up and bringing them just their brother Francis. They have real criteria that they need to meet, and so it might identify some other areas of a gap that we need to hear about. So if we know what they do, then we can learn about what else we want.
Sure. Mr. Dunbar?
Yeah, I'm not sure this question is for you, Nicole, or for Nancy, or anyone else, but someone asked me recently, during this cold snap, did we have any cold fatalities, people out, or did we see uptake in fatalities? I know we always have some.
I couldn't say about an uptick necessarily, but there were some fatalities. Sometimes ASP is part of that. Sometimes AFD is part of that. Or so I wouldn't say that there's but I don't have that data to say. I don't know, Nancy, if you have it comparatively this period of time or these conditions compared to something else.
We've requested it. We've done a year review of fatalities of people found outdoors in the past, and the police department's working on some data right now for us.
What I can say is that there have been spaces available in the emergency shelter. We've gone close to filling up, but we have not fully filled up. Actually, what we find sometimes is that the numbers go down or the vacancies go up, and where that is that people pool together sometimes resources to say, we know it's going to be very cold tonight, let me sleep at someone's house, let me find some other short-term resources, so that there was actually, it was surprising to me, this is my first winter here at the health department, to then see, oh, actually there's more space in the shelters because it's colder. So, thank you.
All right, anybody else like to speak? Anyone at all? All right, with that, we will adjourn. Thank you.